Natural Habitat Adventures is pleased to bring you this webinar today, The Mighty Brown Bears of Katmai. And we're coming to you live from our offices in Boulder, Colorado today. Our guest speaker is Shaun Eccleston. And let me tell you a little bit about Shaun. When the opportunity came to view brown bears up close a dozen years ago, Shaun didn't hesitate to pack his bags. And this began a lifelong journey of building a relationship between himself, the brown bears of Alaska, and everyone he guides. His dedication to the habitat and preservation of Alaska's brown bears is on display in his work as a photographer and the co-author of Alaska Fish and Game's Mcneil River Bear ID book. And in addition to his 20-plus year career as a city and wildland firefighter, he brings a unique perspective to the awe-inspiring power of nature by getting us in touch and connecting us with this amazing part of the world. So, Shaun, we're just really happy to have you here with us today, and I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be, this is a privilege to give this webinar, and a little excited. Hopefully you don't hear the nerves. But good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're coming from. Glad you guys tuned in, and hopefully you'll enjoy this adventure and get an idea of such a wonderful tour and place that we're going to talk about today. My first webinar, I'm going to admit that to you right now, my first webinar, and I'm excited about it, but really the reason I'm a NatHab guide, and I've been guiding on the Alaska coast for years, is to sit there and watch the people. First reason is I get to watch the power and the beauty of this nature, but to be able to watch the reaction of people, whether it's smiles or giggles or tears rolling down their face, that's a job satisfaction that it goes beyond anything. Unfortunately, today I don't get to see your reactions, so bear with me on this first webinar. Katmai National Park, a very special place, and the tour that NatHab offers is an incredible tour, and something that will be not just, it'll be an experience of a lifetime. So we're going to talk about that. First, about me a little. Thanks for the little bio there. Here's a photo of myself, just so you have a photo to go with this voice that you're going to be listening to. I was born and raised here in Colorado, and from the very get-go, my dad raised me to appreciate wildlife, appreciate the nature that Colorado has, the wilderness and the mountains, the power, and then of course how to function and how to be safe within them. So I give a lot of credit to my family that raised me going up to the mountains, and really that's probably where it all started. We had a family cabin down in West Cliff area, and there's a lot of black bear down there, and I remember waking up and hearing the black bears stroll through right past my tent, and that's where this all started. About 14 years ago is when I played the Mcneil River Sanctuary Lottery. If you haven't heard of that, I ask you guys to look that up. Mcneil River Sanctuary is run by Alaska Fish and Game, and they have a lottery every year. If you win that lottery, which is an amazing thing, then you have the chance to buy a permit and go up to Mcneil River Sanctuary and view the bears on the Katmai coast, in the sanctuary just north of where we tour along the coastline. So I won that permit. I packed my bags, went up there, and it was a life-changing moment. It was amazing, and I got to not only see the bears and be a part of them because of an airplane ride. I got to stay in there longer than the permit allows, and become friends with the guides up there. Tom Griffin and Drew Hamilton that we'll talk about. And from there, developed a relationship with them and with Alaska Fish and Game, and started going back and as we mentioned, developed the photo ID book for the Alaska Fish and Game. So that's kind of how it all started. A couple more photos. This love of nature and wanting to preserve it and conserve led to me starting to fight forest fires as soon as I got out of high school. And I'm a structural firefighter and fly gliders here in Boulder when I'm not up playing with the animals and working for NatHab. So after Mcneil River, and here's a photo of myself and Drew sitting there in front of Ursus. This was day one when I started working for NatHab a couple years ago, and couldn't be happier. This is Drew Hamilton, one of our other guides for NatHab. Then we have Justin Gipp and Joe Josephson, and also Teresa. We all guide on the Ursus for NatHab. Wonderful guides, and that's what really makes this tour a special tour and something that will be life-moving for you. So worked on the photo ID book, and you can only win the lottery every other year to go into Mcneil. So I quickly realized that was, and you just don't win the lottery. It's the chances of winning the lottery is pretty slim, but if you do, it's pretty amazing. Play the lottery and go see the bears both with in the sanctuary and with us on this tour. So from there, I started doing my own thing along the coast, and eventually started guiding and taking photographers up there and trying to perfect my photography and going from there. So that's kind of my background, where I started. This will be my 14th year up in Katmai, and hope to see some of you guys up there with me. Just a cover of that photo ID book that we talked about. Let's talk about the bears. Today, just an idea of what we're going to talk about. I want to give you the story of the Katmai bears, how special this place is, and how special the bears make it, and just how special they are. Then I want to talk about the story of the day in life on the Ursus, on our Grizzly boat, and hopefully answer a lot of questions for you if you're interested in this tour. Hopefully let you guys learn and ignite your passion, your desire to see these bears and to go from there. So that's kind of how we're going to lay this out. Like she said, we'll have questions at the end. If I don't answer them while we're talking. All right. So here we have, hopefully you guys can see my pointer here. Here we have Alaska, the area that we're going to talk about. This is really a specialized trip. There's other trips that NatHab offers in Alaska, the Alaskan Safari, which covers a larger area of Alaska, but this is specialized, and it's all about the bears on Katmai coast. So if you see this Alaska Peninsula that turns into the Aleutian Islands, where my pointer is where the Katmai National Park is, just a little west of Kodiak Island. Kodiak is where the tour starts. Going to Kodiak for a day or two with our with our guide there, and focus mainly on more of the sea life, birds, the culture of the native Alaskans, and then from there you'll fly over to our floating Airbnb, the Ursus. So this is it's a very small part of Alaska where our tour is going to take place, and we can zoom in here. Here's the borders of Katmai National Park, and we will Mcneil River Sanctuary, what I was talking about, is just north of the park. But our tour is a very dynamic tour and is always changing, but we will be somewhere in this area along the bays here. So this first bay is Hallo, and then we have Kukak and Kaflia and Kinnick. This one with all the islands in it is Geographic Bay. And we will be in that area. It looks small on the map, but it's a rather large area and extremely wild. Katmai really is reinvented itself back in 1912 when the eruption of the Nova Erupta volcano that erupted in 1912. Soon after that, National Geographic came in here to Geographic Bay, and 1916 discovered just how beautiful this area was, and 1918 is when this was declared a national park. So that's when things kind of really got started. And of course, on the tour, we talk more about this and how the volcano and the eruption changed the face of this area and really made it a suitable environment for the brown bears. But the brown bears were not the highlight or the reason even why the national park was declared. Really, that happened back in 1989, which was the year that we had the Exxon Valdez oil spill. And unfortunately, this whole coastline was covered in oil from that oil spill. So boats were coming over here to clean up the shoreline. And as they were doing that, they were like, wow, there are a lot of big, beautiful bears here. And that's when really the bear ecotourism and started there along the coast. It was back in the late 80s and early 90s. So we realized that this area was the highest concentration of brown bears in the whole world. And let's cover that real quick. You're going to hear me at times Nahab refers to this as the Grizzly boat or the Grizzly tour, and you're going to hear me often refer to them as the brown bears. And so let's address that question. What's the difference between brown bears and grizzlies? Well, really nothing within themselves. They are the same species, and there's no difference there. The reason we have the two different names, it's a geographical distinction between the two. So grizzlies are inland. So our grizzlies in Yellowstone, just came back from Yellowstone looking at grizzlies. It came out of hibernation the other day and watching the wolves and them play and interact together. But those grizzlies in Yellowstone, Montana, they're inland, and so we call them grizzlies. The ones up in Denali National Park in Alaska, they also are considered grizzlies. The ones that we refer to as the brown bears, same species again, but they're coastal. And grizzly is kind of that cool name that we've all grown up and heard about. But the brown bears, those are the big boys. So they're coastal. They have this food source that we're going to talk about today. While they're eating 20-pound salmon one after another, the grizzlies in Denali National Park are digging up and eating 1,000 ants at a time. So there's our difference. These brown bears are some of the largest bears in the world, and that's because of the food source. And the grizzlies, those inland guys, are several hundred pounds smaller, but same species. So as you can see in this photo, if we didn't have the brown bears, just as we know, as it covered, 1916, they said this place is so beautiful, or 1918, we need to make this a national park. If we didn't have the bears, this would be a place I would encourage you to go to. It is so beautiful, the glaciers, the rivers, the grasslands. It's an amazing, beautiful place with or without the bears. And with that, it's also incredibly remote. We are out there in what we call true wilderness. The energy, the challenge, the power that you are going to experience along the Katmai coast, this Alaska peninsula, is just awe-inspiring. And it's what really makes this an amazing trip, is being in that wilderness and having no connection. And I'll warn you right now, and it's one of the best parts of the trip, there's no connection. So no cell phone, no Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, no keeping up with the news. And I think you'll find within minutes that that's a true blessing on this trip. Yeah, we may have our cell phones out there taking a few photos with the cell phone. But other than that, we have either our high-powered radios or satellite phones. It's our only connection with the outside world. And that's what gives us really allows us to really be in tune with the nature and become a part of this wilderness, is not having any distractions from anything outside. Again, you can see the beauty that we have. And when we say concentration of bears, big concentration. 78 bears have been seen at one time near the falls. So that's the record on hand. 78 bears at once. And there's a reason for that. So let's address one other question. Here's that's Anne on the side, on the right-hand side there. She is what we call the trip owner or facilitator of this tour with NatHab. She's amazing. Does all the background, all the work in the back. Makes it easy for us guides. Makes the trip amazing, and she's my boss, and she's just amazing. What's great is we get to we send our staff people from here in Boulder. We send them on these trips whenever we can, so that when you guys call into the office and you have these specific questions and concerns or just wondering, well, a lot of these people have been on the trip, and it's something that they can answer from a personal note. So here she is, and this is in Hallo Bay, and Mom and a couple of cubs playing. So let's answer one question before we get any farther into this. This trip is, how can we be this close, walk amongst these bears in their house, their yard, and do it in a confident manner, safe. We've got our moms and our cubs up there. Everyone knows, never be around a mother with cubs, how dangerous it is. And in some ways that is true. We'll talk more about it, and I'll even show you some photos, but a mother defending her cubs and keeping them safe is one of the most powerful and beautiful things you'll ever get to see. And but how can we do this safely, especially with these big boys? This guy is probably pushing 1,000 pounds, and he's one of the big guys. You can see just by his looks. Can't see too many scars. This guy's scarred up from fighting for mates and fighting for the fishing hole. Just to give you an idea, so ear to ear here. Let me get my pointer here. So from this ear to this ear, just give you an idea how large this head is. That's going to be close to 2 feet distance between these ears. That's a big head. When he's weighing 1,000 pounds, the size of this neck, the power of these arms, and the size of these paws is just awe-inspiring. So let's talk about can we go up there and do this safely? And the answer is absolutely yes. We've talked about how rugged it is, that the concentration of the bears, they're going to outnumber us. There's going to be 9 of us out there. And there's going to be a lot more bears than the 9 of us out there, me and if we have 8 on the group. However, the guides with NatHab are some of the best guides in the world when it comes to the Katmai coast. There's not a lot of people that guide on the Katmai coast. It's a specialty, but these guides are amazing. And what they've done is they've come to understand the behavior and understand what works and what doesn't work. And what we do is we know the behavior of the bears, but it's the humans that we're going to restrict. So we have our rules. We have exactly how we're going to facilitate and operate around these guys, and that's what makes it a safe thing. These bears, they're highly, highly intelligent. It's been thought in the past, well, their eyesight's bad or their ears are bad. No, their eyes are just as good as any human's eyes as far as vision. Their ears, they have the capabilities of something like a dog. The reason those have been thought that way is because of how much they rely on their sense of smell. And their sense of smell is 100 times better than a dog, 1,000 times better than any human. They 3D map this valley out with their nose and are able to and really rely on their nose. And that's where people thought some of these other senses were weak. But these guys are highly intelligent. We don't sneak up on these guys. We don't stalk these bears. They know where we are. They always know where we are. We put ourselves in a safe position, and we restrict our movement, our behavior, and we let the bears do what they want to do. So we react to their movements, to their body language, and our guides are very versed and experienced in that body language, and we make sure that we're always safe and that we don't affect their behavior. We let them move about and do their thing. And the reason for that is they have a lot more to worry about. They don't worry about the 9 people sitting on their bucket with their smiles and their grins and their giggles and their tears. They don't worry about when they walk close to us, the language they think we speak, which is click, click, click. And that's because for years and years and years, we've restricted our movement, and they've come to learn and understand that another big male bear is going to do this or that. However, these humans that sit on their buckets, they're going to sit there calmly. I've got a few videos in here, and we'll play this one. As you can see, we're sitting here. This is a very large male. He just moved another male out of a fishing spot. The other guy was a big guy. We called him Stallone because he had a droopy lip. And this guy was a little bigger and a little more assertive. But this guy, as I mentioned, he's approached us, takes a look over at that guy he was fishing with, and he walks by. We didn't move. We didn't approach him. He does his drive-by, gives us a little sniff. He's checking us out with that amazing nose. And he gets to do what he wants to do, and he gets to make all the choices. So that's how we do this in a safe manner. We're always watching what we're doing. If you notice there, he's going to mark his territory a little and walk off into the sun. Just an example of what it's like up there. So as I mentioned, they have bigger things to worry about. And it's pretty amazing. We've got these massive males like this. And then we've got our little guys with our moms, and we've got the subadults. The subadults are those, they're not cubs, they're not with mom anymore, but they're not the big guys on the river, and they're teenagers. They act like teenagers. They think they kind of know everything, and then somebody walks up and they act like a teenager. So with that, those subadults are concerned about what the big females are going to do. They're concerned. They want to learn. They want to catch their fish on their own now that they're not with mom. The females are protecting their cubs from the large males. They're being chased if they don't have cubs by the males during the mating season. And that's what is the big dynamic concern of these bears, not the people sitting on the buckets. We call this interaction, this constant interaction between all these bears. These are individual bears. They don't travel in a pack or a herd. They're individuals, but they come into these same areas because of the food source. And when they do that, they have to react and understand what's going on amongst everyone. We call it ORD. It's kind of their personal space, their reactive distance, and when they're going to move and get away from each other. And that's always changing, and we'll talk about that a little more, but that's what their concern is. And so hopefully I've answered that, and we'll talk a little more about that as we go. But the safety, there's nobody has ever been injured or killed on the Katmai coast with a good guide. They're in Mcneil River Sanctuary. They've just celebrated 50 years, and they've never had an instance where they've had to fire their shotgun that they carry at a bear, anything like that. We did have a few deaths a few years ago. That was Timmy and his girlfriend. That's a different situation. There were some issues there and some rules that he broke. And other than that, the safety record on the Katmai coast with the brown bears is just perfect. So we're going to intend to keep that and want to put you at ease and give you help you see the confidence that we have and that we're safe. We do carry a boat flare. All it is a distraction and a scary thing. We don't carry guns. There's no need for that. Guns and bears don't mix well. I've never used a boat flare on one of these bears. In all the years I've been up there, I used one for the first time last year with a wolf that found me in the river by myself, and I gave him a little distraction. There's no animals that want to have anything to do with the guy that pulls out a really, really bright ball of fire that's in his hand. So all it is just a deterrent, something to say you don't want to play with me today, and they go on their way. So that's how that all works. So let's address one of the next questions. This is a very dynamic area. The tour is always changing, as you saw on the map. We're always moving, and that always leads to another question. When is the best time to go between our season that starts in June and ends in September? And really, the only way to answer that is there's never a best time, or it's always the best time to go. The difference in that time span, there is a lot of difference, location-wise and what's going on. Here you see this little cub. I call this photo side salad, and he's in the sedge flats. These sedge flats are where they really start to feed when they come out of hibernation, as the sedge greens up. It's an amazing amount of protein that they can take in, and these guys have adapted and eat so many different things. It's pretty awe-inspiring. But here he is eating the what I call side salad. These guys will just eat sedge all day long, and that's where we see them in June, out there in these sedge flats eating. And then part of this dynamic area is the tides, and the tides really dictate a lot of things on our everyday life out there on the boat. How we get to some of the places where we go is really dictated by the tides. We're on the average 16 to 18 foot tides every day. So we may be picked up or dropped off, 10 feet from the grasses. And 4 hours later, we're getting picked up by the skiff several hundred yards away from the grasses just because of this movement. So when these tides go down, they go out also into the areas and do a lot of clamming. That's happening in June. Also, their amazing sense of smell, they can find these clams, they dig them up with their claws, crack them open, and something that we can't do, but they're very, very good at it. So June into July, a beautiful time. They have their winter coats as they come out of hibernation. The moms are coming out with the cubs. they're in the sedge flats, and we see a lot of cubs out there in the sedge flats with their mothers because it's a larger area, it's open, they're not constricted, and they're not bringing their cubs down close in the salmon areas later in the year. As July comes, we start to transition. The sedge flats start to dry up, and it's all eaten. And then we move on toward the salmon and the berries that are going on. Short little video of us sitting on our buckets, and we're eating in the sedge flats. A lot of this time on the boat will be spent in Hallo and Kukak on the north end of the peninsula. That's where the large sedge flats are. Big concentration of bears. You can see this neck on this guy and that distance between the ears that I was spoke of. Here we are in Hallo Bay, just out there watching. And like I said, larger area, so we see a lot of bears come in at once, and the mothers have a little more space between them and the others with the cubs. We talked about that ORD, that personal space that these bears are always doing a risk assessment. How close, how far do I need to be away from this guy? And you'll catch a little of that right here. And this is the little behavior, the little things. See how this guy, he stops eating in the front because this guy's moving. Stops eating, checking him out. This guy turns his head, goes back to eating. And this guy in the front, he's a smaller bear, and he's a little more relaxed, and he'll go about his eating. Again, these two aren't concerned about this guy raises his head again there, and you see him stop eating. He goes, all right, he's in my personal space. I'm going to move away a little. So that's the little things that the amazing guides of NetHab notice, and we're constantly changing and moving our behavior just based on these little things. So that might give you a little idea of how that is and what it's like to be around these guys out there. So as July progresses, the salmon start moving in, and that's when the bears start working the rivers. And this is when we really start to see the circle of life, how these salmon interact, and we'll talk more about the salmon as we go on today. That starts there in July. The berries are ripe. They eat the berries, and the salmon start moving, and then we kind of get into the salmon season, into July, August, and in towards September. And each of these bays and these different rivers and streams have different salmon runs. So we're moving and progressing as we go. So they're going to start walking the banks, and they can smell the salmon come in, and we can too. The other thing that happens early in the season is not only they're out there eating the sedge flats, but the other thing that's happening is the males are competing to breed with some of the females that don't have cubs with them, and so there's breeding that happens along with this. Wish you guys could hear, really to sit here and be this close and watch this guy walk by is just awe-inspiring. It's humbling, but we got a little rain here today, and he's gonna shake all that off, and to hear that hair move as he shakes is just it's really you understand all he's doing is shaking like your dog does at home, but you understand the power behind it, and you relate to it in different ways. This is a spiritual moving trip for sure. So we get the competition. I didn't put a bunch of photos in here of some of the big boys fighting, but they will compete for the females, and that's where we're able to identify some of the big boys year after year because of the distinct scars that they have. But that continues to happen, and then in this early part of the season, there's a little romance going on and some mating. These females can mate with different bears, multiple different bears, and then there's a delayed implantation that happens. So nothing really starts to happen until they go to hibernate. And if they come out of hibernation with 2 or 3 cubs, they may not all be from the same male bear. So all this takes place at that beginning time. We're still answering that question, when do I want to go out there? It's really on what do you want to see. So we've got our cubs. Let's talk about these cubs and moms. It's so neat to watch these moms. They have these cubs. We call them the early cubs, first year cubs. We call them koi cub of the year or spring cubs. A lot of times they have that white ring around their neck. They're smaller. They're very concerned about everything around them that's going on. It's all brand new to them. But mom will keep cubs for several years, 3, maybe even 4 years, and they'll grow and learn. And during that whole time, really what she's doing is teaching survival to her offspring, teaching them how to fish, where to go for the food, how to travel, how to react in this dynamic situation of those subadults that we talked about, the other females, the other cubs around, and the big males. They do an amazing job at really teaching them. You see this mom she's fishing, and there's some other bears in this area. So the cub, he's on his hind legs. He's learned that from mom, I need to use my eyes. I need to use mainly my nose and look. He's not looking at us. She's not looking at us. We're, again, that small group sitting on our buckets, going click, click, laughing, giggling, and enjoying every bit of this. They're going to react to the other bears around it, and they're going to get their job done, go fishing. Love the photos of the claws. They really have the tools to do this job. So this is a 2-year this cub's been around 2 years. You can see the size compared to mom there. And you may be able to hear, I doubt it, but so he doesn't quite have the manners, he or she, this cub. But if you could hear this, he's bawling and crying. He wants to nurse. Because of some of the things that I've already mentioned, these moms, when they're nursing, that's when they're most vulnerable. They can't be looking around them and by them. So it's pretty vulnerable, but they will pull up next to us. And she gives in to his bawling and crying, and eventually allows him to nurse him or her. So it's special. It's really special to see this mom rear back like this, see this 2-year-old cub. He likes that milk, and once he starts doing this, I call it, it's like a little motorboat. He starts to purr. It's this deep, it's so hard to describe, but he really starts to purr, and you can hear it. You know, we're 50, 60 yards away from these guys probably, and you can hear it for quite a distance. If there's more than one cub, it's even more. And so he goes from bawling and mom give me my milk to this purr as he gets to nurse. So yeah, some of the amazing things that we get to see on this tour. If there's just one cub, she's going to play with them, and to watch her play with her cub, teach him how to fight, teach him how to brawl, teach him how to fish. It's pretty neat to watch a little karate man trying to take on his big mom. To see that interaction, that love that she has, and that desire to to help him or her be successful, she's going to kick him out, and she literally has to run these bears away after 3 years, as she starts to no longer nursing. She'll go into estrus, and she has to run her cubs off, and they have to go on their own way. That way she gets, as soon as she goes into estrus, then the big boys are going to start following her. So she moves them out of her area, and they go on their way. Some nice sized cubs, probably 2-3 year olds. As they get to be this size and become more proficient at the fishing and that kind of thing, they tend to be more of a force. They can get into the smaller fishing areas, the prime spots, because of their size, and will move the sub-adults, those teenagers that I was talking about. Don't want to be around these guys, especially this mother. She's very assertive. And all these qualities and traits go on. What's neat is they're willing to nurse and be vulnerable around us. Again, because of our behavior, how we've protected and have all the guides along the Katmai coast have protected this so that they've never seen us as a threat or a danger to us. Again, they're always making that risk assessment, but because of never seeing us as a threat, they tend to be close to us and enjoy us. Some koi cub of the year. Nice big mom, good tongue. Again, rolls back and lets them nurse right in front of us. This is one of the bluffs. These mothers will come up here on the bluff. That way they have a view and they can nurse. So we've got 3 different mothers up here and 3 different offspring. This mother is taking a look down. She sees these sub-adults playing and kind of sorting themselves out. This was pretty funny. She was pushing rocks down toward them. They were no threat to her, but she wanted to let them know, you're too close. And this is some of the power that I mentioned earlier. This trip, you get to learn so much. You get to learn the behavior and understand the qualities, the values that these bears have. And we've heard the term mother bear. This is a large, older male that came up on one of these bluffs. And you can see on his side there, he's got some scars from fighting with some other big guys. But he came up here and got in her personal space. And she's a smaller bear, but she's very assertive and is going to protect those cubs. You can see those cubs are watching intently, and they're learning from this. And right after this, they went into those alders. I couldn't see what was going on, but the crashing was pretty intense. And I saw this guy, he was down off the bluff about 10 minutes later, and he was bleeding from his shoulder. So this is Mother Bear teaching her cubs how to defend themselves and pushing this guy down off the bluff and drew a little blood doing it. It really is humbling, the power that they have. It's and again, the priorities and the values that these bears show and display is something that is a reminder for me every time I go up, and something that I try to follow and try to be a better man just by watching the behavior of some of these guys. I'm no mama bear, but I sure appreciate what they're doing. Some of our past clients out there, expectations. Let's talk a little about that. What do we expect on this trip? Well, do we expect the bright, sunny, blue skies every day? No, this is Alaska. Again, we've talked about how wild, how remote this is. You see in all the photos just how green it is. Well, that comes with a lot of rain and water. We'll talk about on the boat and the gear that we give you, but you can see, even though we're getting rained on today, and it's kind of a gloomy day, we still have the bears. Bears don't care about that. They like it. It's nice and cool for them. But look at the smiles on these guys' face. They're enjoying it and love it. So there's a lot of information, and you can ask a lot of questions if you're interested in this tour, what to expect weather-wise, and we help you guys understand that. But the expectations that we want you guys to go away with is that some days are beautiful, some days aren't so beautiful. We don't call them bad weather days. We just call it, it's not a bad weather day, it's just bad gear if you have it, but we make sure you guys are ready and outfitted correctly. This is this is Wendy here in the office in Boulder. She's amazing, responsible for the catalog that some of you have and get to see. Again, we send these staff here in Boulder get to come up and enjoy it and really see what it's truly like, and helps them, in her case, put together an amazing catalog and understand exactly what we're offering to everybody. We're big males. This is, I call him Rio, right ear off, kind of hangs down. He charged me as I was standing in the river when I took this photo, not because of me at all, but the female had circled around. He had been pursuing her all day, and she circled around and put a little distance between him and her by putting me in between us, which was great for her. Like I said, he wanted me to move out of the way, which I did, and he began to pursue her, but yeah, big guy there. Feel like I'm talking too much, but when we're up there, there's a lot of things I encourage. I encourage you guys to put your camera down and record these moments that you get to see with your eyes. Record them in your heart. Record them in your mind, just as much as you do with the camera in front of your eye. And I talk a lot less at times. There's times that we can learn and teach up there and explaining to you what we're watching. But I try to be quiet so you can really take in the whole experience. The water going by, the noise, the seagulls, and watching these big males move about. So we call this guy Clifford. He's a young sub-adult. What's neat is as you get to go on a tour, and our clients spend several days. I believe this is Geographic Bay. We saw this guy every day. He was out there fishing, really learning how to be a bear, and it's a neat experience because you start to learn about these bears. You get to learn and see some of their behaviors and their traits. This guy couldn't keep his tongue in his mouth for nothing. Always yawning and just making funny faces at us. He was close to us and curious, but at the same time, actually was really developing his skills catching salmon. And that's what is neat for our clients is they get to learn these bears. They get to learn, and they come away with an understanding of the bear behavior, all that. Let's talk about salmon. I just looked at the clock. I need to keep moving ahead. So when I went up to Katmai the first time, I thought, I'm going to see bears. What I didn't realize and found out really quickly is I was going up to see a circle of life that is just absolutely beautiful, and we've done a good job of not damaging it and conserving this fishery, the salmon that run up these rivers and creeks every year. It's kind of hard to see, but those are all fins. At times you think you can walk across the top of the water on salmon. All that splash is being caused just by the salmon moving up the stream. Pretty impressive, and of course this is why the bears show up. They are athletes like you wouldn't believe. Think about how hard it is to hold on to a fish. These guys, to catch them in this water and be able to hold them. These are big, strong fish. And of course, you see the roux, the eggs there, squirting out as he's enjoying his breakfast. They have all the tools to catch the salmon. Beautiful big claws on this guy. Of course, we work hard to catch the salmon, and we eat the salmon, and then we got to take a nap. Same thing we do on the boat, and we kind of follow their example. But we don't catch salmon like they do. Their skills and to move 600-800 pounds that quickly, use these claws to catch these very, very powerful fish. These guys, as you've seen in the photo, they jump these falls and get up to where they were, where they hatched 7 years or 5 years before that. They know how to get all the way up every left and every right turn that they want to take. They know how to go exactly where they started, and they've been out in the ocean for 6-7 years, and they come back, and as they go up there to spawn, of course, a small amount are taken by the bears, and that's that big circle of life, which then fertilizes these sedge flats, and the nitrogen put back into the vegetation from the salmon. It's an amazing process, and that's why we call these bears an umbrella species. If we protect these bears, and we do this through our conservation, through education, and we protect these bears, then we're protecting everything that's out there because of them being what we call an umbrella species. And that's really where our desire is to you guys to come out and enjoy these guys, to shed a tear when you first see them. I love every time I see that. And to watch this power, but to be educated. And for every one of the visitors on Katmai National Park or Katmai Coast, they go home. And they go home not just with photos and stories to tell, but they go home with what I call the bear glow. And their friends and their family see this bear glow, and they realize that the spiritual side and how moving this trip was for them. And then these our clients get to tell everything and show everything from their photos of what they learned. So every single visitor up there now becomes an educator because of their passion, because of that bear glow that I like to see. And they educate, and then those friends and family tell others. Maybe they say, that's on my bucket list. I'm going next year, or I'm going to do this before I'm 50 years old, or something like that. And that's where the conservation happens. That's where our education and preservation of this all begins, is through this ecotourism. And World Wildlife Fund and NAHAB are really, truly the leaders in all over the world in this, but they do an excellent job up here in Katmai. We'll see this over and over as we go along. Again, this is going to be more in the July, August, September time. We're down here in Geo on this video, and how these bears are catching and moving along. There's a good example of what the group looks like, sitting on their buckets, and the skill of this bear. He drops down, he's in 1-2 feet of water there, and catches a salmon, eats it right in front of us. the backdrops, mind-boggling. All right, so let's move to the boat and kind of the day in the life of what's happening on the Ursus. The Ursus is the boat that we use, the natural habitat Ursus. This is really a cool boat. It's a working Bering Sea crab boat. That's what it was made for. It truly became famous as a working crab boat, and it no longer does that, but it's got all the qualities and all the everything we need to really become our floating lodge. You get out there, you fly out from Kodiak, and you fly out. This is actually a short little video of our short little video of our float plane leaving, going back to Kodiak. So there's a few people on there. They're bummed because they're leaving. But this is how you guys come out to the boat from Kodiak Island, and how you go back. If you've watched The Deadliest Catch, it's one of the longest, I think the most successful and longest running reality TV shows. The Deadliest Catch, it's all about the documentation and the life of the Bering Sea crab fishermen. And the Hillstrand brothers have been on it from the very get-go up until last year. And the Time Bandit was one of the famous boats. And this is actually the first Time Bandit. They've had two. They're no longer on the show anymore after, 15 plus years. But the Time Bandit, this is originally the Time Bandit and the Hillstrand. So if you have watched that series, then you're very aware of this boat and just how famous it is. So it was what's great about these crab boats is they have several engines. They can't go out in the Bering Sea and face those 40-foot waves in the middle of winter to do all that without the necessities. So we have several engines, several generators on here. We have a fuel tank and oil tanks and water tanks so that we can be out for a month at a time. I don't know how many freezers and probably 6 refrigerators on this boat, and we're always flying in fresh food. So the Ursus has everything we need to really be the perfect Airbnb out on the coast, and it's massive. There's nothing light about this boat. It was built to extent so it can be in extreme weather, and of course we don't use it in that. But it's extremely stable. You really don't even realize that you're floating because of how stable this boat is. It's been retrofitted, so this is the cabins. If you can see with where our guests stay, and we've updated that. So now there's 4 cabins, and they have their own sink, and then you share a toilet and a shower with one of the other cabins. The rest of the crew, we're down here in the bottom of the boat. So beautiful accommodations. It's an older boat, and it's not luxury, but it's really cool, and it provides us with everything we need. Never ever seen anyone get seasick on it, that kind of thing, just because of how large and how stable it is. Here's our tight little galley that we eat at every day. We get up in the morning, we have our coffee, we have our breakfast. We talk about the plan for the day and how it'll probably change. We talk about what we're excited about that day. And on the right there, that's one of our chefs. If you know anything about Nat Hab, we're famous for the amount of food and how wonderful the food is. I'm not one of those guys that takes pictures of my food, because why take pictures of it when I can just eat it? So I don't have, but these chefs, they are amazing. It's some of the best seafood you will ever eat. And every meal, we come back from viewing for a few hours, we have a lunch prepared for us, and to sit down and talk about the stories and how excited we were and how moving it was. And then we go back out in the afternoon. We come back and get all our gear off, and our chefs are ready with the dinner and drinks, and we talk about the day and what we look forward to and the next day. This is up on the wheelhouse, the bridge. If you can go up there and act like you're driving it and say, I drove the Time Bandit, the famous Time Bandit. This is one of our visitors, one of our clients. She's a ball of fire. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think she's been on this tour, on the Alaska boat, grizzly bear or brown bear tour, I believe 12 times. She keeps coming back. One of these days we just need to hire her as a guide. She can't get enough of it, and if you came out, you would see why. So we have our skiffs. We have a crane that we can unload these skiffs on and off. The safety, being able to step out from the boat onto our skiff and go ashore is wonderful. Excuse me. Again, this is the quarters in our cool boat. Here's a picture of our skiff, and we've got our captain on the boat and his first mate. First mate takes us from the boat over to the shore. The neat, wonderful thing about this skiff, this ramp here in the front drops down. So we'll pull right up to the coast, and we're able to just walk out. We're not climbing over the edge of the boat at all. We walk out onto the land. You're going to be in waders. We may be walking out into 1 or 2 foot of water. And again, those tides are up and down. But it's truly the best way to do it. Here's some of the beauty you get to see with this skiff. We enjoy some of these tighter areas. And you see everyone there in the waders, and our captain giving us a little tour of Geographic Bay. I can't say enough about this. And we've been talking about bears I need to keep moving, but yeah, we've been talking about bears, but it's obviously not all that we see. We don't set the expectation that you're going to see wolves out there or wolverines, but we've been very fortunate to see these guys. This guy came around last year. He was a beautiful younger wolf. They don't hunt in packs during the summer. They are out there fishing with the bears. They don't need to hunt in packs and maybe get injured trying to take down a big moose or something when they can catch the salmon just like the bears do. The bears do it better, but these guys are pretty good at it also. So they'll all be out there in solo, maybe a couple together. Cool little video of this guy just being curious with me and saying hi and wondering what's in my pack, and I'm just patting my leg, telling him to keep at a distance. But he's curious and meant no harm, but just curious and got to be close to us. So, of course, it's always time to stretch and do a little yoga on the beach. Once again, we're sitting there, and it's their choice to come to us. We'll give them 100 yards, and if they want to come up and sit by us and hang with us, that's all their choice. Our behavior allows them to do what they want. So I'm not going to get political for very long, but I'm going to mention this. It's something that is a huge concern. If you don't know anything about it, I encourage you to research it, but the Alaskans have been fighting this proposal of the Pebble Mine, which is a gold mine just north of this area, for 10, 15, probably 15 years they've been fighting this, and it's an ongoing battle. I encourage you to do your research. Again, World Wildlife Fund and NatHab is all about conservation, and this Pebble Mine and their desire to put an open mine, literally, and trucking this gold out right past the bears is just it's just horrible. So here you see Katmai National Park. This is the coast that we're on. Mcneil River Sanctuary is this area, and this is where they want to put this mine. And the biggest concern is damaging all the headwaters for the salmon, which is a billions in dollar industry, but also is what preserves and keeps this ecosystem going. And the pebble mine would destroy a lot of this, and these trucks driving up and down this massive road that they want to build would just be devastating. Here's an idea. I want to give you an idea of so again, we've been talking about this area down here. These are tagged bears. I know this guy, this purple, this is ears. He travels hundreds of miles in all different directions. And this is the area that they want to mine. So these bears travel all over. As you can see down here, bears that were tagged in Hallo and Bay, which is an area that we will be visiting, have been showed up at Mcneil Falls. And then these pinpoints in these spots is where these tagged bears have shown up. So they don't know boundaries. They don't know the boundary of the national park or the Mcneil River Sanctuary. They know that this is their house, and they need to survive, and they'll travel along these areas. Unfortunately, this Canadian mining company wants to come in and be a part of this. So I encourage you to do a little research. Again, I'm not going to get very political, and we're going to keep moving forward. But the pebble mine is a big concern, and we're going to go on from there. As I mentioned, we'll see a lot of other wildlife that all play a part in this amazing ecosystem, the eagles and how they play a part. And we're going to rest and nap with the bears and go from there. So that's kind of the end of my presentation. And this is the end of the Ursus boat, our wonderful Airbnb that we have. Again, the staff, if you have questions about this boat, they can answer so much and give you an idea. All right.
Well,
again, I encourage you guys to look into this and research this. Hopefully you guys have seen just how much I love these bears, how beautiful this place is, how special it is, and how moving it can be. And I hope you join me up there and get to sit there and laugh and cry and be humbled by the power of this wilderness and the power of these bears. And I thank you for your time and letting me ramble on. And if you think I'm halfway passionate about this, come up there and sit next to me, and you'll see the passion, you'll see the love that I have for them. So thank you very much.
Shaun, thank you so much for being with us today. We've got so many wonderful comments and questions. We're out of time to answer questions on the air, but we have gathered every single question, and we will get back to all of you with answers. And we thank you so much for being with us today. We will also get the replay out to all of you, so you will have access to that if you want to share or review any of this information that Shaun has shared. And Shaun, there's no doubt your passion came through today, and we all felt like we were right there with you. So we appreciate you giving us some of your time and your insight. It's your passion is contagious. So with that, we'll say good day and conclude our webinar now. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks again, Shaun.
Goodbye.
Bye.